Well, Rovers, in the last episode you saw me put some epoxy down a center line inside the floor there. Well, it's all hard now, but now I have to prep that whole inside for what will be a pretty major fiberglassing undertaking where I'll be putting some biaxial 10-inch wide fiberglassing running over both of the chines, the bow, and the transom. But before I can do that, I have to clean up the glue joints. And they were a little bit on the messy side from several episodes ago when we glued up the boat upside down. I didn't notice how bad or how much glue had dripped out. That all needs to be cleaned up before we can do anything else. So I'll be doing a little bit of sanding, but I'll be looking at other ways to knock some of those big bits of hard epoxy down so that we can, I don't know, prevent or too much dust getting in the air. It's just needless work really to sand that much epoxy. Anyway, a lot to do. Time to crack on. My name's Alan Mulholland and I'm a solo sailor. This is the story of how I built the Wave Rover 650. 3 years ago, I refitted a 40-year-old Contessa 26 and took her on an amazing 7,800 nautical mile ocean voyage. We crossed the Atlantic twice, but a knockdown on the second crossing and COVID-19 put an end to my solo circumnavigation. So now, I'm building a new boat, smaller, lighter, but more suited for a solo circumnavigation. The Wave Rover 650. Well, when I did the initial glue up of the lower chines, from the outside everything went really well. But from the inside, it's a slightly different story. Here, take a look. When we did the glue up, we got a fair amount of spillover from the edge here. Over here, it's particularly bad. So it's coming up pretty high. It's about 2 inches, and I've got to get that taken off. You know, that would have been so easy to do when the glue was wet. If I managed to get on the inside of the boat, I could have wiped that all down and things would have, well, I wouldn't be looking at about a day's work to knock this back. This side over here, the port side, it's not too bad. There's just one little section here that's about 3 feet long. That won't take long to do, but it's really the starboard side over here where I have to deal with this, and it's pretty much the full length. Some areas are worse than others. Now, I've tried a few different things. I've tried a Surform tool. That's this guy right here. It's kind of like a cheese grater. Some files. Paint scraper actually is a great tool, but really I'm finding that a chisel is the best way, and I can knock it back about 90 to 95% fairly quickly with a chisel, and then I'll be able to come along after with a sander. Now you might be saying, why not get a sander in here right away? Well, it's just that you don't need to waste your sandpaper, create all that dust. You can knock it back fairly quickly with the chisel, and I'll show you that right away. Now it's time to sharpen this chisel a little bit. It's not in bad shape. I've been using it as a scraper and chiseling away some of the epoxy with it. Epoxy is very, very hard, and it is feeling a little bit dull. So I'm going to use a whetstone to sharpen it. And this type of whetstone, and I'm sure I'll get a lot of comments about it, this is a whetstone that uses oil as opposed to a water stone, which a lot of people are using these days, and they're very good, of course, but I work in temperatures that are oftentimes sub-zero, and a water stone is just going to crack on me. So oil stone, this is the traditional way that we've sharpened tools in the carpentry trade for a long, long time. So you want to make sure you put some light machine oil on the stone, very important as a lubricant. And then just take your chisel and then just lightly spread the oil out. Okay, now once you do that, what you need to do is find that bevel on your chisel. Your chisel has a little bevel on one side. You find that, and then you lift it just a tiny bit more, about 2 or 3 degrees. And then use the whole stone, holding the chisel at the same angle throughout. And you don't have to do a lot of this. There we go, we're done. And then just go to the back side of the chisel, hold the chisel flat on the stone, and just work it just a little bit back and forth. Okay. And that's nice and sharp now. Next step you want to do is clean the oil off the stone, because it's hard to see, but there's little gray paste in here now, and those are metal shavings from the chisel itself. So you just want to take a rag and wipe those off. If you don't wipe those off, then the stone will become glazed, and it won't sharpen the chisel, it'll just polish it. And that's all we really need to do. Well, just a little word on my Whetstone case. It's made out of Honduras mahogany. I made it 31 years ago. 31 years ago, I was a first-year apprentice, carpentry apprentice, and this was one of the very first exercises they gave us. They gave us a little print of what to do, and then told us to use a chisel to make this. You could use a router, of course, and that would do a very neat job, but the whole object of the exercise was to learn how to chisel accurately. And if you can do something like this with a chisel without causing stress cracks or splitting out in the corners and leveling out the bottom with a chisel, I can tell you by the time you finish making one of these, you'll be pretty expert at using a chisel. And what a great little case it's been. Like I said, 31 years, and I've probably used this hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times, sharpening chisels and plane blades, and that's all I have to say about it. If you're new to carpentry and you want to get some good skills, good project to start with. Anyway, time to crack on. So you want to take the chisel and have the bevel pointed down, and that way your chisel isn't going to really dig in to the wood. It'll glide on top of the surface. Try to hold that angle as best you can. There we go. Every now and then you're going to catch a little bit of veneer. It's inevitable, but that's okay. That's going to be inside a fillet that'll be going across here, and then glass will go over top of it. Well, Rovers, I spent the last couple of hours prepping this area for sanding, really, because the chisel knocked off 90% of it. And now I'm going to hit it with the orbital sander, and we should have it all cleaned up in a couple hours. So initially I thought it was going to take a day. Really, we're probably talking half a day, about 2 hours to knock it back with the chisel, and then about another 2 hours to do the sanding. But the sanding would go a lot faster, but I'm also going to hit this chine area, take off any high spots, and I'm also going to hit the area just underneath the shear. I'm also going to get the area back aft, around the transom. So I'm going to get all the sanding done because it makes a bit of dust, and then there'll just be one big cleanup after.
Actually, hang on, grab the other one too. Take both at the same time. They're pretty light.
Oh.
One on each round.
Believe it or not, Glenda, this guy's older than me. Pretty cool,
You would never know it.
By the time I'm that age. imagine
Maybe
how
you could
fit
do
I'll
that
be.
too.
Well, there's a guy in my motorcycle club who's 85, and he's in really good shape. Because it's repairable anywhere in the world.
Oh yeah.
That's my theory.
Yeah, and that's how the Mark III was attached on Wave Rover.
Yeah.
Look at that. The sun is setting on the Wave Rover frames as they drive off to Nova Scotia.
Yes.
One over the top, yeah. All right. Do that.
Well, this week we have a very special name to add to the Benefactors bulkhead. Bob Pinkham and his daughter Holly. Now, Bob was a sailor and a longtime Wave Rover fan, and recently he has passed away. Now, it's an honor to add their names to the bulkhead. So what is a benefactor? Well, these folks have made a contribution of $100 US or more to the project, and their names will be affixed to a bulkhead inside Wave Rover and will be traveling with me on our circumnavigation. Now, these donations truly are much appreciated. Well, in the next episode, it's all about fiberglassing, and I end up fiberglassing myself into a corner. Now, until next time, Rovers, thanks for watching. Well, Mr. Speckles and I would like to take a moment to thank all the Wave Rover patrons whose pledges of support help power the Wave Rover project. Now, if you'd like to know more about Wave Rover's patron page and Benefactors bulkhead, I have links to both those pages in the video description. Now, another way to help Wave Rover, and it doesn't cost you a dime, is by sharing our content on your social media. So now, as always, Rovers, thanks for watching. Give us one more. Brilliant.